Jinho Park stood at the observation deck of the human transport ship, watching the massive space station grow larger through the reinforced glass. Nexus Prime was bigger than anything Earth had ever built, and it sparkled with lights from thousands of different alien ships docked around its metal arms. This was where the Galactic Council met, and where humanity would either find friends or enemies among the stars. He adjusted his dark blue diplomatic uniform and checked his watch one more time. In 6 hours, he would stand before representatives of 47 different alien species and ask them to accept Earth as a member of their galactic community. The weight of 5 billion human lives rested on his shoulders, but Jinho had been preparing for this moment his entire career. Captain So-Young Kim walked up beside him, carrying a datapad filled with security reports. She was shorter than Jinho, but her presence filled any room she entered, and her sharp eyes missed nothing that might threaten her ambassador. So-Young had been Jinho's friend since their military academy days, and now she commanded his security detail with the same precision. She once used to lead soldiers in battle. "The station security chief wants to meet with us before the ceremony begins," So-Young said while scrolling through her notes. "His name is Commander Thek-Ra, and he belongs to the Hegemony faction. The intelligence briefing says we should be careful around him because the Hegemony sees us as potential rivals." Jinho nodded but kept his eyes on the station. The Hegemony controlled almost half the galaxy through military force, and they had made it clear they did not welcome new species that might challenge their power. The Consortium faction was more interested in trade and profits, while the Collective preferred to stay isolated from galactic politics. Most smaller species were caught between these three major powers and looked for any chance to gain more independence. Dr. Woo-Jin Lee joined them at the observation deck carrying a sealed case that contained Earth's gifts for the council members. The elderly scientist had spent months selecting items that would show humanity's culture and scientific achievements without revealing too much about their military capabilities. Inside the case were samples of Earth music and art, along with medical research that could help treat diseases affecting multiple alien species. "The translation software is working perfectly," Dr. Lee reported with excitement in his voice. "We tested it with the station's computer systems, and it can handle all 47 languages used in the council chambers. The aliens will hear our words in their own speech patterns and cultural contexts." This was crucial because previous first contact attempts by other species had failed due to communication problems that led to misunderstandings and conflicts. Earth had learned from these mistakes and invested heavily in universal translation technology that could bridge the gap between human thoughts and alien minds. The transport ship docked with Nexus Prime with a soft vibration that Jinho felt through the metal floor. Station personnel began the standard boarding procedures, while So-Young's security team prepared to escort the diplomatic party through corridors filled with creatures that humans had only imagined in science fiction stories. Jinho picked up his ceremonial briefcase and straightened his shoulders. Inside the briefcase were the formal documents that outlined Earth's request for council membership, along with detailed information about human civilization and its peaceful intentions. Every word had been reviewed by teams of lawyers and diplomats to ensure there could be no misinterpretation of Earth's goals. The airlock opened with a hiss of equalizing atmosphere, and Jinho got his first close look at alien technology. The walls of Nexus Prime were covered with displays showing information in dozens of different writing systems, while the air itself seemed to shimmer with energy fields that helped different species breathe comfortably in the same environment. Commander Thek-Ra was waiting for them in the docking bay, and Jinho tried not to stare at the alien's blue-gray skin and 4 arms that moved with mechanical precision. The Hegemony officer stood nearly 8 feet tall, and his uniform was covered with medals and rank insignia that spoke of many battles fought across the galaxy. "Ambassador Park," Thek-Ra said through a translation device attached to his throat. "Welcome to Nexus Prime. I trust your journey from Earth was without incident." "Thank you, Commander," Jinho replied while extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Earth is honored to be invited to address the Galactic Council, and we look forward to productive discussions about our future relationship." Thek-Ra did not take the offered hand, but instead performed a brief bow that Jinho recognized as a sign of acknowledgement rather than respect. The alien commander's eyes studied the human delegation with obvious interest, as if he was evaluating potential threats or weaknesses that might be exploited later. Your species has advanced very quickly since first achieving spaceflight, Thekra observed while leading them through corridors filled with exotic aliens going about their daily business. The Council is curious about how humans developed faster than light travel in such a short time. When most species require centuries to master such technology, Jinho had expected this question and had prepared a careful answer that would satisfy curiosity without revealing the truth about the crashed alien ship that Earth's scientists had reverse-engineered. The official story was that human ingenuity and international cooperation had led to breakthrough discoveries in physics and engineering. Earth's scientists worked together in ways that our planet had never seen before, Jinho explained as they walked past shops and restaurants that served food for dozens of different alien digestive systems. When faced with the challenge of reaching the stars, our people put aside old conflicts and focused all their energy on peaceful exploration. This was mostly true even though Jinho left out the part about how the alien technology had accelerated human development by at least 50 years. The crashed ship had been found in the Sahara Desert by a joint scientific expedition, and its advanced systems had provided the foundation for everything from improved computers to the faster-than-light engines that brought them to Nexus Prime. Council chambers were located at the center of the station, in a vast, spherical room where representatives from different species could observe each other during formal sessions. Jinho was amazed by the variety of life forms that filled the chamber, from gas-breathing creatures in environmental suits to silicon-based beings that looked like living crystals. So Young positioned her security team at strategic points around the human delegation, while Dr. Lee set up the cultural display that would help other species understand Earth's diverse civilizations. The presentation included images of human cities and natural wonders, along with samples of music that represented different regions and time periods. As the formal session began, Jinho felt the weight of history pressing down on him. This was humanity's first real chance to join the galactic community as equals rather than as primitives who had stumbled upon alien technology. The decision made here would determine whether Earth's children would grow up in a universe filled with friends and trading partners, or surrounded by potential enemies who saw humans as threats to be eliminated. The session moderator was a tall, insectoid creature whose translation device spoke in perfectly clear English when it addressed the human delegation. Ambassador Park of Earth, you may now present your species' request for membership in the Galactic Council. The floor recognizes the human delegation. Jinho stood and walked to the center of the chamber, where a platform would broadcast his words to every representative present. He looked around at the dozens of alien faces watching him and felt the same mixture of excitement and terror that had filled him when he first learned that humanity was not alone in the universe. Honored representatives, he began, I come before you not as a conqueror or as someone seeking to take what belongs to others, but as a friend who hopes to learn from your wisdom and contribute to the peace and prosperity of all species. Earth offers its hand in friendship to any who will accept it. Captain So-Young Kim fired the courier ship's engines at maximum power, while alarms screamed warnings about structural stress limits being exceeded. Behind her, the burning wreckage of Nexus Prime grew smaller, but the images of what happened there would stay burned into her memory forever. She had to reach Earth before the aliens realized that one human had escaped to tell the story of Ambassador Jinho Park's murder. The assassination had been planned with military precision and executed with cold brutality that shocked even So-Young's combat-hardened mind. Jinho had been making real progress during 3 days of negotiations, and several smaller species had begun supporting Earth's membership application when the attack came during what should have been a peaceful dinner ceremony. So-Young replayed the security footage on her personal datapad for the 100th time since escaping Nexus Prime. The video showed Jinho standing to give a toast about friendship between species when armed figures in hegemony military gear burst through multiple entrances to the dining hall. The ambassador had no chance to defend himself or even understand what was happening before energy weapons cut him down in front of dozens of alien witnesses. Dr. Woo-Jin Lee sat in the co-pilot seat staring out at the stars rushing past their ship and occasionally wiping tears from his eyes. The elderly scientist had watched his friend die while trying to protect the cultural artifacts they had brought as gifts for the council members. A hegemony soldier had shot Dr. Lee in the shoulder, but So Young managed to drag him to safety during the chaos that followed the assassination. Why did they kill him? Dr. Lee asked in a voice filled with confusion and grief. Jin-Ho was offering them friendship and cooperation. He never threatened anyone or made demands that would harm their interests. So Young checked their navigation systems and confirmed they were still 12 hours away from Earth at maximum speed. The courier ship was designed for fast communication. Runs between distant star systems and its engines could maintain faster-than-light travel longer than most vessels, but the strain was beginning to show on critical components. They killed him because they were afraid, So Young answered, while monitoring engine temperatures that were climbing toward dangerous levels. The hegemony controls half the galaxy through military force, and they saw Earth as a future threat to their power. Jin-Ho was too good at his job, and he was winning allies that might have supported us against them. The real tragedy was that Jin-Ho had been succeeding in his mission to establish peaceful relationships with the galactic community. Representatives from smaller species had been impressed by Earth's scientific achievements and cultural diversity, while even some consortium delegates had shown interest in potential trade agreements that would benefit both humans and aliens. But Supreme General Krath Vor of the hegemony had been watching those same negotiations with growing alarm as he realized that humanity might become a rallying point for species that wanted to challenge the current galactic order. The general had decided that it was better to eliminate the threat before it could grow stronger, rather than risk losing control over the territories and resources that kept his military machine running. So Young had been in the Security Command Center reviewing defensive protocols when the attack began, and she managed to record everything through the station's internal surveillance network. The footage clearly showed hegemony soldiers carrying out a planned assassination while station security forces stood aside and allowed it to happen. This was not a random act of violence, but a deliberate political murder designed to send a message to any species that might consider challenging hegemony authority. The courier ship's communication system activated with an incoming message from Earth, and So Young felt her heart racing as she prepared to deliver the worst possible news to people who had been waiting hopefully for word of diplomatic success. The transmission delay meant that Earth was still receiving optimistic reports from 3 days ago when negotiations seemed to be going well. Captain Kim, this is Admiral Jae-Sung Park requesting immediate status update on the diplomatic mission, came the voice of Jin-Ho's younger brother through the ship's speakers. We have received no communication from Nexus Prime for over 18 hours, and Defense Command is concerned about possible technical difficulties. So Young closed her eyes and took a deep breath before responding to the Admiral's message. Jae-Sung had been following his older brother's diplomatic career with pride and had often said that Jin-Ho's peaceful approach to alien contact was more valuable than any military victory. Now she had to tell him that his brother was dead and that Earth's hopes for peaceful coexistence had died with him. Admiral Park, this is Captain Kim reporting emergency status, she said into the communication system while trying to keep her voice steady. Ambassador Park is dead along with most of the diplomatic staff. The mission has failed and I am returning to Earth with Dr. Lee and complete documentation of what occurred at Nexus Prime. The delay in faster-than-light communication meant that several minutes passed before Admiral Park's response came back filled with shock and disbelief. Captain, please confirm your last transmission. Are you reporting that Ambassador Park has been killed during the diplomatic mission? Dr. Lee leaned over to the communication panel and spoke directly to Earth with tears still visible on his face. Admiral, this is Dr. Lee confirming Captain Kim's report. Your brother was assassinated by hegemony forces during a formal dinner ceremony. The attack was planned and executed to prevent Earth from gaining allies in the Galactic Council. So Young uploaded the security footage to Earth's communication network along with her detailed report about the events leading up to Jin-Ho's murder. The evidence clearly showed that this was not an accident or misunderstanding, but a deliberate act of war disguised as maintaining galactic security. The hegemony had decided that humanity was too dangerous to be allowed to continue existing as an independent species. Hours passed in silence as So Young pushed the courier ship toward Earth at speeds that threatened to tear the vessel apart. She knew that defense forces would already be mobilizing based on her initial report, but the full implications of what had happened at Nexus Prime would not be understood until political and military leaders could review the complete documentation. The ship's communication system activated again with a priority message from the highest levels of Earth's government. President Mi-Ra Cho's voice came through the speakers with a tone that So Young had never heard before from the normally calm and diplomatic leader. "Captain Kim, this is President Cho speaking on behalf of the entire human species," the president said with barely controlled emotion. "We have reviewed your preliminary report and footage from Nexus Prime. Please confirm that the evidence clearly shows premeditated murder of Ambassador Park by hegemony military forces." So Young looked at Dr. Lee, who nodded his confirmation before she responded to the president's question. "Madam President, the evidence is undeniable. Supreme General Krath Vor ordered the assassination to prevent Earth from gaining political influence in the galactic community. They see us as a threat that must be eliminated before we become too powerful to stop." What So Young did not know was that President Cho was receiving this news in the depths of the Seoul Command Center, surrounded by military advisors and intelligence analysts who were already working on response options. The president was not just losing Earth's ambassador, but her husband of 20 years and the father of their 3 children. The political implications were staggering because Jin Ho's murder effectively meant that Earth was at war with the most powerful military force in the galaxy, whether humans wanted that war or not. The hegemony had made their position clear by killing a peaceful envoy, and there could be no diplomatic solution to a conflict that had begun with assassination. Dr. Lee activated his personal data recorder and began transmitting additional information that he had gathered during their 3 days at Nexus Prime. The elderly scientist had used his time to study alien technology and political structures while mapping out the relationships between different species and factions in ways that might prove useful for military planning. President Cho Wyam uploading intelligence data about galactic military capabilities and political weaknesses that Ambassador Park gathered during our negotiations. Dr. Lee reported while transferring files to Earth's communication network. Jin Ho suspected that the hegemony might take hostile action, and he prepared contingency plans for various scenarios, including the possibility of armed conflict. The most important piece of information was Jin Ho's analysis of how the crashed alien ship found in Earth's desert had originally belonged to an extinct species that once dominated the galaxy through superior military technology. The ambassador had discovered that current galactic powers were actually descendants of the coalition that had destroyed that ancient civilization when it became too powerful for others to control. So Young felt the courier ship's engines beginning to overheat as Earth appeared on their navigation screens, but she maintained maximum speed because every minute could be crucial for humanity's survival. The aliens who had killed Jin Ho would not stop with one assassination if they decided that Earth represented an existential threat to their continued dominance of the Chief Engineer Nari Song stood in the depths of Earth's most secret research facility, watching her team put the finishing touches on weapons that would have been considered impossible by galactic standards just 6 months ago. The facility was buried 3 miles beneath the Himalayas and contained technology that Earth had developed by combining human ingenuity with alien science recovered from the crashed ship in the Sahara Desert. President Mi-Ra Cho had given Nari unlimited resources and authority to develop whatever weapons might be needed to respond to Ambassador Jin Ho Park's assassination. The president's orders had been simple and direct: create something that would make the aliens regret ever hearing the name of Earth or humanity. Nari activated the holographic display that showed her latest creation and felt a mixture of pride and terror at what human scientists had accomplished in such a short time. The weapon looked like a simple metal sphere about the size of a basketball, but it contained enough destructive power to disassemble an entire starship at the molecular level using self-replicating nanotechnology. Dr. Tae-min Yoon approached the display carrying data pads filled with analysis of alien biology and technology that had been gathered during the diplomatic mission to Nexus Prime. The xenobiologist had been working around the clock to identify weaknesses in hegemony military systems that could be exploited by Earth's new weapons. The nanite swarms are ready for deployment, Dr. Yoon reported while updating the tactical display with information about hegemony ship designs. We can program them to target specific alien technologies or even individual species based on genetics markers. The aliens have never encountered anything like this because they have always relied on energy weapons and kinetic projectiles. Nari nodded while reviewing the test results from the nanite weapons. The tiny machines could eat through any known material and reproduce themselves using the atoms they consumed until entire enemy fleets simply ceased to exist. The technology was based on principles that the extinct alien species had developed millions of years ago before being destroyed by the ancestors of current galactic powers. Admiral Jae-Sung Park entered the facility accompanied by his senior staff officers and security personnel who had been cleared for access to Earth's most classified military projects. The Admiral had been working with President Cho to plan humanity's response to his brother's murder, and he needed to understand exactly what weapons would be available for the coming war. Engineer Song Wai need a full briefing on our current capabilities, Admiral Park said while studying the holographic displays that showed dozens of different weapon systems in various stages of development. The President has authorized Operation Vengeance, and we begin military operations against hegemony targets in 72 hours. Nari activated additional displays that showed the full scope of Earth's hidden military preparations. The planet had been secretly developing advanced weapons for years based on technology from the crashed alien ship, and humanity was far more dangerous than any galactic power realized. We have 3 primary weapon categories ready for immediate deployment, Nari explained while highlighting different sections of the display. Nanite swarms for ship-to-ship combat quantum tunneling mines that can materialize inside enemy vessels and gravity manipulation devices that can crush entire fleets or tear apart planets. The gravity weapons were perhaps the most terrifying, because they could create localized distortions in space-time that would compress matter into impossibly dense points or stretch it apart until atomic bonds failed. Earth scientists had learned to weaponize the same forces that held the universe together, and the results were beyond anything that current galactic civilization could defend against. Admiral Park reviewed the technical specifications for each weapon system while his staff officers asked detailed questions about deployment options and tactical limitations. The Admiral was a veteran military commander, but he had never imagined weapons with such devastating potential, and he struggled to understand the full implications of what humanity could now accomplish. How many ships can we field with these new technologies? Admiral Park asked while studying deployment schedules that showed production timelines for the various weapon systems. The hegemony has thousands of warships, and they control the industrial capacity of dozens of star systems. Nari brought up intelligence reports that showed the true scope of Earth's military preparations over the past decade. Hidden shipyards in asteroid belts and on the far side of the moon had been producing warships using alien technology, while research facilities on every continent worked to develop new weapons and defensive systems. We have 200 ships, ready for immediate deployment with full alien technology integration, Nari reported while showing fleet deployment options on the tactical display. Each ship carries enough firepower to destroy entire hegemony battle groups, and we have manufacturing capacity to produce 50 additional vessels per month. This was Earth's greatest secret because the planet had been preparing for potential conflict with alien powers since the first crashed ship was discovered. Human leaders had realized that peaceful contact might not be possible, and they had invested enormous resources in developing military capabilities that could protect Earth from any conceivable threat. Commander Yoo-Jin Kim arrived at the facility, carrying reports from Special Forces teams that had been training for deep space operations behind enemy lines. Yoo-Jin was Captain So-Young Kim's younger sister, and she had been selected to lead infiltration missions against hegemony worlds using technology that would allow small teams to penetrate any defensive system. Admiral, the Special Forces units are ready for deployment, Commander Kim reported, while uploading mission profiles to the main tactical display. We can insert teams on any hegemony world within 48 hours, and they will be equipped with stealth technology that makes them invisible to alien detection systems. The stealth technology was another application of principles learned from the crashed alien ship, and it allowed human operatives to become effectively invisible by bending light and other forms of energy around their bodies. Combined with weapons that could target specific alien technologies, the Special Forces teams would be able to strike anywhere in hegemony territory without warning. Nari activated a secure communication link to President Cho, who was monitoring the military preparations from the Seoul Command Center. The President had been working with her advisors to coordinate humanity's response, and she needed regular updates on weapon development and deployment schedules. Madam President, all weapon systems are operational and ready for immediate deployment, Nari reported while transmitting the latest technical specifications to the command center. "We await your orders to begin Operation Vengeance against hegemony targets." President Cho's voice came through the communications system with a tone of cold determination that reflected her personal loss and her responsibility to protect Earth from alien aggression. The president had spent months reviewing intelligence about galactic politics and military capabilities while preparing for the possibility that diplomatic contact might lead to armed conflict. "Begin the operation immediately," President Cho ordered while transmitting target coordinates to the military facility. "Strike their supply depot in the Zerian system first to demonstrate our capabilities, then proceed with systematic destruction of their military infrastructure. Show them what happens when they kill Earth's envoys." Admiral Park reviewed the target list that included dozens of hegemony military installations across their territory. The attacks would be coordinated to cause maximum damage while demonstrating technologies that the aliens thought were impossible. Earth wanted the galaxy to understand that humanity was not a species that could be bullied or eliminated without consequences. Nari watched as the weapons systems she had developed were loaded onto Earth's warships for their first combat deployment. The nanite swarms were contained in specialized delivery systems that could be fired from long range, while the gravity weapons were integrated into the ship's main battle systems. Every vessel carried enough firepower to devastate entire star systems if necessary. Dr. Yoon approached the main display carrying final updates about alien biology that might be relevant for the coming battles. His research had revealed that the hegemony's dominant species had several physical weaknesses that could be exploited by Earth's weapons, and he had developed targeting protocols that would be especially effective against their military leadership. "The aliens have never encountered weapons that attack on the molecular level," Dr. Yoon explained while updating the tactical computers with biological data. "Their defensive systems are designed to stop energy beams and projectiles, but they have no protection against nanites that can disassemble their ships from the inside." As Earth's warships prepared to depart for their first strikes against hegemony targets, Nari felt the weight of responsibility for what was about to happen. The weapons she had created would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever, and there would be no going back once humanity revealed its true military capabilities. To the aliens who had made the mistake of murdering Ambassador Jin-Ho Park, General Byung-Ho Lee stood on the bridge of the Earth warship Retribution, watching hegemony supply ships dissolve into streams of component atoms as nanite swarms consumed everything in their path. 6 months had passed since Ambassador Jin-Ho Park's assassination, and humanity's response had turned the galaxy into a battlefield where the old rules of warfare no longer applied. The Zerian system had been the first target, and its complete destruction had sent shockwaves through galactic civilization as alien powers realized that Earth possessed weapons beyond their understanding. Hegemony battle fleets that had dominated space for centuries were being systematically eliminated by human ships that appeared without warning and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Colonel Hyjin Park monitored the tactical displays from her position at the communications console while coordinating special forces operations across dozens of hegemony worlds. As Jin-Ho's daughter, she had requested assignment to the most dangerous missions, and her teams had been leaving monuments to Earth's murdered ambassador at the sites of destroyed military installations throughout enemy territory. "General, we have confirmation that the monument protocol has been completed on 7 additional hegemony worlds," Colonel Park reported, while updating the strategic map with new intelligence about alien defensive positions. "Local populations are beginning to understand that these attacks are in response to Ambassador Park's assassination, and some species are questioning their allegiance to the hegemony." The Monument Protocol was Earth's psychological warfare strategy designed to remind the galaxy that humanity had not started this conflict but would finish it with whatever methods proved necessary. Each monument contained a holographic recording of Jin-Ho's assassination, along with a simple message explaining why Earth had chosen the path of war over diplomacy. Admiral Jae-Sung Park's face appeared on the main communication screen with updates from fleet operations throughout hegemony territory. The Admiral had been coordinating attacks against military targets while avoiding civilian populations whenever possible, but the distinction was becoming increasingly difficult to maintain as the conflict escalated. "Brother, we have received intelligence," that Supreme General Krathvor is planning to use a planet-killer weapon against Earth itself, Admiral Park reported while transmitting tactical data about the alien superweapon. The device is being prepared at their capital world, and our sources indicate it will be ready for deployment within 48 hours. General Lee reviewed the intelligence about the planet-killer weapon and felt cold rage building in his chest at the aliens' willingness to escalate to genocidal warfare. The hegemony leadership had apparently decided that humanity represented such a threat to their continued existence that they were prepared to destroy Earth rather than accept defeat in conventional military operations. Admiral, deploy the gravity hammer against their capital world immediately, General Lee ordered, while activating the authorization codes for Earth's most powerful weapon system. If they want to use planet killers, then we will show them what real planetary destruction looks like. The gravity hammer was a weapon that could manipulate space-time itself to create gravitational anomalies powerful enough to tear apart entire worlds or compress them into neutron star density. Earth's scientists had developed the technology by studying the crashed alien ship's data about cosmic forces that the extinct species had learned to control before their own destruction. Dr. Tai-Min Yoon's voice came through the communication system from his research facility on Earth with disturbing news about the galactic situation. The xenobiologist had been monitoring alien communications and political developments while analyzing the broader implications of humanity's military campaign against the hegemony. General Y have intercepted communications indicating that the consortium and collective factions are preparing to form an alliance with remaining hegemony forces, Dr. Yoon reported while transmitting decoded alien messages. They apparently believe that humanity poses a greater threat to galactic stability than the hegemony ever did. This development meant that Earth might soon face a coordinated attack from all three major galactic powers along with their client species and tributary worlds. The aliens seemed to be repeating the same pattern that had led to the destruction of the extinct species millions of years ago when fear of superior technology had united otherwise hostile factions against a common enemy. General Lee studied the strategic situation and realized that humanity was approaching a critical decision point where they would either achieve complete victory or face annihilation at the hands of a unified galactic coalition. The middle ground of limited warfare was disappearing as both sides escalated toward weapons and tactics that could destroy entire civilizations. Colonel Park, deploy monument teams to consortium and collective worlds immediately, General Lee ordered while updating the target list to include non-hegemony installations. Make sure they understand that Earth's response to Ambassador Park's murder extends to any species that chooses to support his killers. The Retribution's weapon systems activated as nanite swarms were prepared for deployment against a hegemony battle group that had appeared at the edge of the star system. The alien ships were using new defensive technologies that could partially resist human weapons, but they remained vulnerable to sustained attacks that overwhelmed their protective systems. Colonel Park received updates from Special Forces teams operating deep in enemy territory, and she could see that human military superiority was beginning to affect alien morale across the galaxy. Reports indicated that several species were withdrawing support from the hegemony, while others were openly questioning whether continued resistance against Earth was worth the cost. General, our teams report that civilian populations on hegemony worlds are beginning to revolt against their military leadership, Colonel Park announced, while displaying intelligence gathered from infiltration missions. They have seen our weapons in action, and they understand that continued war with humanity can only lead to their complete destruction. The psychological impact of Earth's advanced technology was proving as effective as the weapons themselves, because alien populations had never encountered military capabilities that made their most powerful defenses useless. Entire hegemony fleets were being eliminated without Earth's ships suffering any significant casualties, and this technological gap was impossible for alien leaders to explain to their people. Admiral Park's communication came through with confirmation that the gravity hammer had been successfully deployed against the hegemony capital world. The planet-killer weapon that had been prepared for use against Earth was caught in a gravitational distortion that compressed it into a sphere of ultra-dense matter before the energy was redirected back at its creators. The hegemony capital is gone, Admiral Park reported with grim satisfaction. Supreme General Krathvor and most of their military leadership were killed when their own planet-killer weapon was turned against them. The surviving hegemony forces are scattered and without central command. General Lee felt no pleasure in the destruction of an entire world, even though it had been necessary to prevent the aliens from using their superweapon against Earth. The escalation to planetary destruction marked a new phase in the conflict, where the survival of entire species would be determined by their willingness to accept human dominance or face complete annihilation. Dr. Yoon's research facility transmitted new intelligence about alien refugee movements and political negotiations as the galactic situation continued to deteriorate. Millions of beings were fleeing war zones while alien governments struggled to maintain control over populations that increasingly viewed human victory as inevitable. General, we are detecting massive refugee movements from hegemony territory into consortium and collective space, Dr. Yoon reported while analyzing population data from across the galaxy. The alien governments are struggling to provide for these displaced beings, and their military capabilities are being stretched to breaking points. The refugee crisis was creating additional pressure on alien governments as they tried to maintain military operations while dealing with humanitarian disasters affecting millions of beings. Earth's strategy of systematic destruction was forcing the aliens to choose between continuing a war they could not win or accepting whatever terms humanity might offer for peace. Colonel Park received priority communications from Earth's political leadership as President Mira Cho prepared to address the galaxy about humanity's war aims and conditions for ending the conflict. The president had been working with her advisors to develop a strategy that would ensure Earth's security while avoiding the complete extinction of alien civilization. All units, this is President Cho speaking directly to human forces throughout the galaxy, the president announced through secure communication channels. We have achieved our primary objective of demonstrating that the murder of Ambassador Park will not be tolerated, but now we must decide how far we are willing to go to ensure this never happens again. General Lee understood that humanity had reached the point where they could either accept alien surrender and establish a new galactic order, or continue the war until every potential threat was eliminated. President Mira Cho stood before the rebuilt Galactic Council chambers exactly 1 year after her husband Jin-Ho Park had been murdered in this same room by hegemony assassins. The chamber looked different now with Earth's advanced technology, integrated into every system and human security forces stationed at strategic positions throughout the massive space station. The alien representatives who filled the chamber were also different from those who had witnessed Jin-Ho's assassination. The hegemony no longer existed as a political entity, and its former territories had been redistributed among species that had opposed the military faction's aggressive policies. Many of the faces looking at President Cho belonged to beings whose worlds had been liberated from hegemony control during Earth's year-long campaign of systematic destruction. Director Sang-Woo Kim stood beside the president carrying the charter for the new Galactic Peace Corps that would enforce humanity's vision of interstellar law. The organization represented Earth's solution to the problem of preventing future conflicts by ensuring that aggressive species would face immediate and overwhelming retaliation from a force equipped with weapons that made resistance impossible. Representatives of the galactic community, President Cho began, while her words were transmitted to every world within 100 light-years of the station. We gather today not as conquerors and conquered, but as species who have learned the true cost of war and the value of enforcing peace through strength. The president activated a holographic display that showed the final casualty figures from humanity's response to Jin-Ho's assassination. Over 2 million hegemony military personnel had been killed along with the entire political leadership of their faction, while civilian casualties had been kept to minimal numbers through Earth's precise targeting of military installations. Ambassador Young-Soo Han took his position at the diplomatic podium carrying documents that would establish the new legal framework for galactic civilization. Young-Soo had been Jin-Ho's closest student, and he understood better than anyone how his mentor would have wanted humanity to use its overwhelming military superiority to create lasting peace. The Jin-Ho Accords will govern all future interactions between species in this galaxy, Ambassador Han announced while transmitting the treaty documents to every representative present. The core principle is simple. Diplomatic envoys are sacred, and any species that harms them will face immediate extinction. This was humanity's solution to the fundamental problem that had led to galactic conflict for millions of years. Previous. Civilizations had tried to maintain peace through balance of power or mutual deterrence, but these systems always failed when one species became strong enough to dominate others. Earth would maintain peace through the promise of overwhelming retaliation against any aggressor. Dr. Woo-Jin Lee approached the speaker's platform carrying research data that explained the historical pattern of galactic conflicts that had repeated itself every few million years. The elderly scientist had spent the past year studying archives from the extinct alien species, and he had discovered disturbing truths about the cyclical nature of interstellar warfare. The species that built the ship we found on Earth was not the first civilization to achieve technological dominance in this galaxy. Dr. Lee explained while displaying archaeological evidence from dozens of different star systems. This cycle has repeated at least 7 times, with each dominant species being destroyed by coalitions of fearful enemies. The extinct species had achieved peace through military superiority, but they had made the mistake of trying to be too generous, with potential enemies who eventually united to destroy them. Earth would not repeat that error, because humanity understood that fear was a more reliable foundation for peace than trust or goodwill between species with fundamentally different motivations. Admiral J. Sung Park's image appeared on the main communication screen with reports from human fleets that were establishing monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. These installations would watch for any signs of military buildup or aggressive behavior while demonstrating Earth's ability to project force anywhere in known space within hours rather than years. Madam President, the monitoring network is fully operational, Admiral Park reported while transmitting status updates from across the galaxy. Any species that attempts to develop weapons capable of threatening Earth or our allies will be detected immediately, and appropriate action will be taken. The monitoring network represented the visible component of Earth's new security system, but the real deterrent was the knowledge that humanity possessed weapons that could destroy entire star systems if necessary. Every alien government understood that resistance to Earth's authority would result in the complete elimination of their species and homeworld. Commander Yoo-Jin Kim transmitted updates from Special Forces teams that were establishing permanent bases on strategic worlds throughout former hegemony territory. These installations would serve as staging areas for rapid response missions, while also providing security for species that had chosen to align themselves with Earth's new galactic order. President Cho, all security installations are operational and staffed with personnel equipped for extended deployment, Commander Kim reported while updating the strategic display with base locations. We can respond to any threat anywhere in the galaxy within 12 hours. President Cho reviewed intelligence reports about political developments on alien worlds as their governments adapted to the reality of human dominance. Most species had accepted Earth's authority because they understood the alternative was extinction, but some groups were still attempting to organize resistance movements that would have to be eliminated. The president activated a private communication channel to discuss sensitive intelligence with her military commanders about species that might pose future threats to galactic stability. These conversations were necessary because Earth's leadership had to make difficult decisions about which civilizations could be trusted to exist under human protection. All commanders prepare for implementation Phase 2 of the security protocols. President Cho ordered while transmitting classified target lists to fleet commanders throughout the galaxy. Some species have failed to understand that their continued existence depends on accepting Earth's authority. Implementation. Phase 2 involved the complete destruction of civilizations that had attempted to organize military resistance against Earth's new galactic order. These species would serve as examples to demonstrate that humanity's commitment to peace enforcement was absolute, and that there would be no tolerance for rebellion against the new system. Dr. Tai-Min Yoon's research facility transmitted final analysis of the galactic political situation as Earth consolidated its control over interstellar civilization. The xenobiologist had been monitoring alien communications and behavioral patterns while developing protocols for managing species relationships under human authority. President Cho, our analysis indicates that approximately 90% of galactic species have fully accepted Earth's authority, Dr. Yoon reported while displaying statistical data about alien compliance with human directives. The remaining 10% represent potential security threats that may require elimination. The statistical analysis confirmed what Earth's leadership had expected based on historical patterns from previous galactic cycles. Most species would accept any authority that could protect them from destruction, while a small minority would continue to resist until they were eliminated as threats to overall stability. Ambassador Han concluded the formal ceremony by reading the final provisions of the Jinho Accords that established Earth as the permanent guardian of galactic peace. The treaty included specific protocols for handling first contact with new species, along with detailed procedures for responding to any violations of interstellar law. Let it be recorded that on this date, humanity assumes responsibility for maintaining peace and order throughout this galaxy, Ambassador Han declared, while representatives from 43 species formally acknowledged Earth's authority. We do this not from desire for power, but from necessity to ensure that Ambassador Jinho Park's dream of peaceful coexistence becomes reality. President Cho felt the weight of galactic leadership settling on her shoulders as she realized that Earth had achieved something that no previous species had accomplished. Humanity would maintain peace through overwhelming force, while ensuring that aggressive instincts that led to interstellar war would be permanently suppressed through fear of immediate annihilation. The ceremony concluded with President Cho visiting the memorial that had been constructed at the exact spot where Jinho had been assassinated 1 year earlier. The memorial included holographic displays showing her husband's vision of peaceful cooperation between species, along with documentation of how his murder had led to Earth's rise as the dominant galactic power. As President Cho stood before her husband's memorial, she reflected on how his death had changed the course of galactic history. Jinho had believed in the possibility of voluntary cooperation between species, but his assassination had proven that peace could only be maintained through the threat of overwhelming retaliation against any who chose aggression over diplomacy.